Right now, the voice in your head that you call you didn't originate with you. Every opinion you hold, every joke you tell the same way at every party, every time you say, "That's just how I am," you're reading from a script you didn't write. And the terrifying part? You can't find the author. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't be able to trust the thing reading these words.
In 1950s America, psychologists ran an experiment that seemed harmless. They asked people to describe their own personalities. Are you outgoing? Are you anxious? Are you creative? Almost everyone answered instantly. No hesitation, as if they were reading off a label stitched into their skin. But here's the unsettling detail nobody expected. When researchers asked the same people's close friends, family, coworkers to describe them, answers were wildly different, depending on who was asked. The mother described a different person than the coworker did. The coworker described a different person than the childhood best friend did. Same human being, 3 different personalities. So which one was real?
Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Psychologists have a term for this: the looking glass self. It means your personality isn't something you discovered inside yourself like a fossil buried in sand. It's something that was built by watching how people reacted to you. You laughed once, and someone laughed back, so you became the funny one. You spoke up once, and a room went quiet, so you became the quiet one. A version of you got rewarded, so you kept performing it over and over for years until it stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like an identity. But that wasn't the worst part.
Because if your personality was shaped by other people's reactions, that means somewhere out there, in a different house, with different parents, different friends, different heartbreaks, a different version of you exists. Same DNA, same brain, completely different person. Twin studies almost confirm this nightmare. Identical twins, same genetics, raised in different environments, often develop startlingly different personalities. Not slightly different, sometimes unrecognizably different. Which means the you you're so sure of was never guaranteed. It was assembled under specific conditions, like a recipe that could have come out completely wrong. And this is the part almost nobody talks about.
Neuroscientists have discovered that your brain doesn't have one single self sitting in a control room directing your choices. Instead, you have competing systems. A social self that changes at work, private self that changes at home, a digital self that changes depending on which app you're using. Each one has slightly different values, slightly different moral lines, slightly different jokes it's willing to make. You've met people who behave like saints online and like tyrants at home. You've probably done a version of this yourself without noticing. So here's the question that should be keeping you up tonight. If your personality shifts depending on who's watching, which one is actually you? Or is the horrifying answer none of them?
But then, something stranger happened in the research. Scientists started studying people with severe memory loss, patients who could no longer recall their past. Logically, without memories, there should be no personality left, no preferences, no sense of self. But something eerie occurred instead. Even patients who couldn't remember their own name still had preferences, still got irritated by the same things, still smiled at the same kind of humor, which means somewhere beneath memory, beneath language, beneath your life story, there's a deeper, stranger layer of you that survives even when the narrative collapses. So which is more real? The story you tell about yourself, or the ghost underneath it that doesn't need a story at all?
This is where the video stops being about personality tests and starts being about something far more disturbing. Because if your personality is built by your environment, shaped by reactions, performed for different audiences, and yet somehow still rooted in something pre-verbal and unconscious, then the you that feels so permanent, so obvious, so solid every time you say, "I am just like this," might be one of the most fragile illusions the human mind produces. Not fake, but not fixed either. Think about how many times you've said, "That's not like me," after doing something out of character, as if there's a fixed original version of you being betrayed. But what if there is no original? What if there's no factory settings? What if you have always been an ongoing negotiation between biology, memory, culture, and whoever happened to be in the room? That means every version of you that ever existed, the version your childhood best friend knew, the version your first heartbreak created, the version your job forced you to become, they were all equally real and equally temporary.
You are not a fixed painting. You are a wave that keeps reshaping itself against whatever shore it hits. And this is why identity crises feel so violent. Because when your environment changes drastically, a breakup, a move, a loss, a new job, it's not just your circumstances that shift. It's the entire architecture holding you together.
Which brings us to the most unsettling possibility of all. If your personality can be shaped by circumstance, it can also be reshaped deliberately. Advertisers know this. Algorithms know this.
Certain relationships are built entirely around slowly reconditioning who you think you are. Every environment you allow into your life is quietly voting on which version of you survives. So the real question was never who are you? The real question is who has been allowed to shape the answer.
Maybe the self was never something to find. Maybe it was only ever something to notice, being built in real time by every glance, every rejection, every love, every silence you were foolish enough to call just who I am. You are not a person who has a personality. You are a personality that hasn't yet realized it's still being written. And somewhere right now, in a life you'll never see, wearing a face you'll never recognize, another version of you is living the story you almost became.